Yeah, I guess it was. Yeah.
April 1st.
Hmm.
No fool.
That actually wasn't bad. Yeah, so if you want to run through it again, I'll give you some different stopping points.
Okay.
Either that same video or whatever. I just wanted to watch it all the way through once.
Okay, and then, okay, we'll keep moving forward. We have a shot around here already.
Right there, yeah.
So we have this one. So right when the heel's about to touch.
If you want to move that up, yeah, to right about point, yeah, like right there is perfect, 0.392.
Okay, I'll put another one there too.
Okay, cool.
Okay. And then I'm going to add another one for myself. I like to see when the apparatus leaves the hand as well. So I think what I'm realizing the more I do these is that there are things that the coaches want to see, and then there are things that I like to look at for metrics. Right. And the coaches are going to use both. They're going to look for what they want to see to help them give feedback to the athlete, but also just in terms of capturing, like how fast was the javelin traveling when it left the hand exactly.
Right.
And so we have a combination of both here. So what phase is this right here that we're looking at?
This is just the initial approach.
Okay.
The key points right now are keeping your feet forward, keeping your chest up, closing off your upper body so you're not opening yet. You're staying closed, and your arm is high, your elbow is elevated, and your wrist is closed, keeping that javelin level right on your eyebrow.
Okay.
So it wasn't terrible here, but you can see his hand start to dip.
Yeah.
As it comes through, the javelin angle slowly the tail starts to fall.
And yeah, I did notice that. So you said eyebrow level, and I was like, oh man, his eyebrows are getting pretty low.
Right. Yeah. I was watching him yesterday. He had he dips, and then it comes up right before he goes to throw. So at least he's consistent with that.
Okay. All right. So we can stop it there. And let's go back frame by frame.
Sure.
Okay.
Pretty good. Yeah, he's keeping his chest up. Obviously, he's still closed off with his upper body. He's looking at his watch on his left hand. Javelin angle's not bad, but if you start here, you're going to end here. If you start here, you're going to end here. So you want to start a little higher. Looks good. Kind of hard to tell with the wrist where it's at, but as long as it's closed off, it's going to keep your wrist from breaking and causing the javelin angle to go to a super high angle of attack.
Okay.
But it's still a good position. We'll go to the next one. Okay. Yeah, you can see that back foot is pretty much perpendicular to the direction he's going.
Okay.
You want it to be more of a here.
So more parallel.
Here. Right. Yeah,
so,
more parallel to the runway. Because you want to be able to open your hip. So you're staying closed, and if you're here, you have a lot more ground to cover to go from here to here than from here to here.
Right.
So you're wasting movement.
Okay. And one thing to note about the cameras that I'm using here, the reason why the wrist is more visible is actually because it is dropping. So if you didn't have motion in that direction, it wouldn't be quite as apparent in terms of like
Part of
the change in contrast. So we see both what are called on and off events, meaning that there's definitely a downward motion here because we can see the changes in the contrast against the background, which we can't see the background because the background's static. But as his arm starts to move down, we start to see the contrast in that direction. So that's again what you were saying. And okay, let's jump to this frame.
Yeah, camera never lies. Cool. Yeah, so again, with the wrist, it drops. I mean, I have the same habit. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You're losing about 10 to 15% of what it should be. When your arm drops, your wrist is going to break as well. So the javelin angle is going to drastically increase. It looks good. His body's still relatively closed off. He probably could hold his left arm a little further this way versus already opening up, but it's not a bad position here.
Okay. Now, in speaking of that front arm, I guess that's something I don't throw javelin, but good to know these little things. So what would be the idea of having the arm staying forward more versus being open? Like, I guess if you're in this position for longer, what's the advantages?
So you're delaying the snap. Because right at the end, if you open up early, you lose that kind of slingshot effect that you have with your upper body, and you're relying on just your arm to throw. Versus staying closed, when you put it all together, it's a slingshot from your feet to your hips opening to then your chest now opens and then follow through to the top. But he's opening early, so he, as you'll see, he reverts.
Yeah. So I'm gonna switch to physics speak. So what I'm hearing from you is like we're breaking our conservation of momentum early. So if we think about the system as like a catapult, I think we talked about this earlier, like that very last second, you want to go from here to all of your energy going towards the throw. But if you've already opened up, you no longer have that momentum conserved. It's already lost. You already lost it. Exactly. So you're kind of like unwinding a coil. If you think about like something spinning, when you're opened up in this motion, you spin slower. When you bring everything in, you spin faster because all that momentum's conserved in the middle.
Exactly. If you think of a spring, if you compress it and if you want it to go here, it's going to go a heck of a lot faster than if you go.
Yeah, and then exactly. Yeah.
You lose. I mean, at that top end, you probably lose 20-25% of your throw when you open up early.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Actually, from martial arts background too, actually, it reminds me of a back kick. So when you do a back kick in martial arts, you don't want to swing the leg open wide. You want to just go from standing and switching legs. Close. Keep it nice and close. Yeah. Keep all that energy into the kick, into that direction. So there are a lot of commonalities across sports and across, the technique, it's the repeating pattern because it's all based on physics and that doesn't change.
Right.
So.
Right. Exactly.
All right.
Just how you optimize it.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's not a lot of research on this yet, compared to baseball or football or what the ideal mechanics are behind it.
Yeah. Okay. So we just had a couple close shots. Like this was just basically the same thing. So from your analysis standpoint, but for the metrics that the World Athletics report or track for javelin, this is like an initial point. So I just wanted to capture exactly when the heel is about to touch, like the onset times, and but for in terms of his arm changing or position changing in that short amount of time, not much. But just for consistency, that's why I grabbed this point versus this point.
Yeah. So there's a couple different factors that go into it. If you're moving faster, your feet are obviously going to hit the ground faster, which he's going fairly slow in this video. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to close the gap between your feet where they hit. You just have to be moving faster so that delay period between your back foot and your front foot is smaller, which is why we took that screenshot. So we can start crunching down that time. You'd have to move faster to get your feet, if they are further, has to be here versus here.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be closer, here. So it's all about finding that middle ground.
Yep. All right. And
cool. Yeah.
So this is the next.
Yep. So as you can see, he's crashing. His chest is starting to drop.
Mm-hmm.
The ideal position here is that front leg. As you can see, it's static because it's you can't see most of it. It's not very defined on the picture. But you want it doesn't necessarily have to be straight, but you want it to be your anchor point of what your body is contorting around. So you want your chest to open up versus crash, because you're here, you're going to resort using your arm, versus here you can pull and use your shoulder, your lat, your pec, everything to pull through.
Right.
Versus crashing, you lose all that, so you resort to your arm, which is why a lot of javelin throwers have tendonitis or UCL issues.
Now, with that, so I like the visual you painted there. One conceptualization that I'm working on, and maybe people watching this can tell me if this is a good way to visualize it. But when I started looking at this, I keep thinking about a catapult. And what I see in this video here is like he's about to release, but if I were to look at, let's see if I can drop an angle real quick. Let's see if I can move this guy. If I were to look at kind of what's going on here related to like the horizon, when you're throwing a catapult, the bar is usually set such that you hit that bar at least 90 degrees or like perpendicular.
Right.
So if you imagine like his hip at release, the tallest point, I would expect that whipping action would be at least occurring closer to 90. And I think that goes with what you're saying about he's crumpling. So this angle here is, with his hip and leg to the ground is a lot, it's more acute. It's not quite hitting that 90-degree point. Or he's not rolling over that leg and anchor point.
Correct. Yeah, which at higher speeds, is a very hard position to get to. It's a lot of core, it's a lot of stability, and you have to be very flexible to hit this position at a high speed. Because that's what happens. You go to crash because your pec and your shoulder and your bicep, it can't handle the tension, so something's going to give.
Right.
You don't injure yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about building the foundation of being able to hit this position at that speed.
And do it in a way that you don't injure yourself or you develop bad habits. Yeah.
Right. Yep, exactly.
So, for example, and again, I haven't quite done this research yet, but in my mind, what I'm thinking of is like, if you look at a pipeline, junior development, people learn to throw, they're working on mechanics. At certain ages, you don't have the body strength built up that you might have when you're in your 20s or so. Right. And so is that something that you see with youth, and like as people are developing, these are the things that you kind of develop last? Like there's like fine-tuning things. Would that be considered like a fine-tuning element? Or is this something that if you can get that position, go for it, or potentially don't do it quite yet because you want to make sure you have the strength and the body mechanics to make sure you don't injure yourself while doing it?
Right. Yeah. So a lot of it, this is not a natural position, right? So it's about finding not only how to get to the position, but then building up on it, on how to do it faster and then maintaining it as you go faster. So baseline, unfortunately, a lot of people resort to using their arm, which again, anybody with an arm can throw a javelin 100 like just from a standstill, you can throw it, but it's about optimizing your legs. You're going to squat a heck of a lot more than you bench press, so you need to use your legs, i.e. your hips, by creating that, like you said, that catapult / slingshot motion, developing all that potential energy to kinetic energy from your feet all the way through your body to your arm, to your shoulder, into that pull, that stretch. You're pulling the javelin, you're not pushing it.
Right. Okay.
So that's the difference. It's not a natural position, nor is getting to that position either. So, it's not necessarily hard to do at a slow speed, but it's developing, it's building those correct reps, which is
Right.
exactly why we're doing this. Because if you do 100 reps and you're not correcting yourself, there's no point in doing those reps. You just
Exactly.
build a bad habit.
Yeah. And I think that concept of you're pulling the javelin and you're not pushing it.
Right.
I mean, that helps even me. Like, hearing it in certain ways helps me really conceptualize the problem. And, I've heard that in running too. Like, I think that's why a lot of amateur runners, they underutilize their hamstring because they're thinking of pushing off the ground. They're always trying to like push off the ground. They're not like pulling back.
Not pulling it underneath.
Yeah, they're not exactly. Yeah, and same thing in swimming too. A lot of these concepts I think really help people understand what the motion that they should be doing is. Like if you just tell someone, no, you're not doing it right. You're not doing it right.
Right.
They want to learn. They want to hear you. It's not that they're trying right. But in their mind, sometimes they're stuck on something or a little piece that needs to be unlocked, and they may not even know it needs to be unlocked. But once you say it the right way or you show them in the right way, then things start to fall in place. They're like, oh, okay, if I'm pulling this javelin through the air, this is what I need to work on because now it makes sense. Like I can feel my body and all those little neurons and different muscle connections are going to be like thinking, okay, yeah, they're going to work together more optimally because the brain understands the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about it. You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Figure out. Everybody perceives things differently. So it's about what clicks. And for me, it was pull the javelin, don't push it.
Yeah.
Because again, you're going to deadlift, pull a lot more than you're going to bench press, push. So it's all about using that mechanics and then getting the thought process and the physics behind it. But obviously you can go out and throw a javelin without analyzing the physics. But when it comes down to fine tuning, once you start hitting those top marks, the top end, a 10% is the difference between an 80-meter throw and an 88-meter throw. That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
That's placing 13th at the Olympics or winning the Olympics.
Exactly.
That's a huge difference. So, and it all comes down to building not only the foundation, but then the mechanics to support doing this at a top speed. So,
and even before you get to the Olympics, making a team, making trials, making worlds, like making D1, whatever the case is, like within your peer group, you guys are probably all operating at a similar margin, and what's going to separate you? Obviously, between the average D2, D1 athlete and a world athlete, there's a big difference. But getting to that next level for you, you're not expecting to make that whole leap all in one stride.
Right.
But what are the little building blocks you're going to put in place to get you to the next level so that you can then work, fine tune, then get to the next level, layer those bricks on top of each other.
Exactly. Like Aiden, who we're analyzing here, he has a cannon. He played baseball. He has a really good arm. He is right around that 60-meter mark, but he's not using his legs. The second he figures out how to use his legs and build that snap and while finding that optimal angle, 70 easy. It's just getting to that point and that repetitive coaching while doing the right thing. Because repetition is, you can do it right or you cannot do it right.
Yeah.
And if you're doing the wrong thing over and over again, you're hurting yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we can jump to the next one.
Okay, this is...
Yeah, see again right there, that crash right there. Instead of rotating.
Yeah, let's just play this through. Yeah, let's just play this.
From here to here, it's here to here.
It's like a crunch. He's almost like he's doing like a little...
And you see all these javelin, and I mean, even baseball, and like it's a different story, obviously. I was a pitcher, and it's different mechanics. It helped me in terms of arm strength, but not utilizing the rest of my body. But, it all comes down to that rotation here with that, because then it's a pull and not a push.
Yeah.
So, because I mean, again, he has the mechanics on the slower end, but the second he hits the runway and he puts some, a little bit of power behind it, there's that crash, and you see everybody walking around with a nice little scar right here because they've had that Tommy John surgery. So, but yeah, I mean, it was a good finish. He finished with his chest up, so he recovered. But at the end of the day, it's all about how you execute. So, right there, you can just see he's full crash. I mean, his chest is pretty much at the ground at that. It's not, I mean, dramatically speaking, it's at the ground. You know, he could be here, but.
Yeah, it's pointing. We could look at the angle and the vectors. Right. And that's something that I do kind of offline. And as I go through footage, as I understand the problem from the experts, you guys, the coaches, I then go back and I start to annotate with metrics and say, okay, how long did it take him to get from here to here? What was the distance of the runway? I can start to get speed from those numbers. Because the camera shows me things like the acceleration right here, going from a scene where the person is moving, we have a lot of contrast changes to the object stopping. That's an acceleration we can use and start to think about, okay, how much force might be applied. We won't give you an exact force number, but we can start to look at getting acceleration as it goes from the previous speed to zero. What's the acceleration there? And we know that acceleration is a component of force. And so all those different metrics are possible using these cameras and Emsight's method. And, really, it's one thing to just take a video, but to have the coaches, the experts discuss the video, and then the metrics on top of it gives you something really rich.
Right, yeah. And, when it comes to analyzing everybody on an individual level, it's not necessarily, it is ideal to get to a peak number, peak angle, but at the end of the day, it's all about improving where you're at. You're not going to jump from 0 to 100 in a week.
Right.
It's all about building, okay, I was at 48 degrees this week, now I'm at 43 consistently. And it's all about.
And I was going to say, you said that number consistently. And because from throw to throw, you might, if I were to take this and measure it a couple times, I might deviate by a couple of degrees. There'll be a little bit of error in my measurement here. And then you go from throw to throw within a session, there'll be some deviations throw to throw. But are you approaching the mark that you set for yourself? So, you may not go for the world-class angles. And even at the world-class level, everyone's a little different. Everyone's body's a little different. But understanding, is what we're doing translating to further throws? And if they are the things you're doing consistent?
Right.
And that's really where I think the progress will come. And we'll see it by saying, okay, yeah, consistently you are moving faster. Consistently your hand is staying higher. Consistently, we can see these numbers, plot them over time, and actually give you a measure for your consistency. And that's something that I'm looking forward to doing more of, so we can get these this understanding of what does it mean to progress and be consistent with your progress.
Right. Exactly. You don't want to. When you hit the pressure and the stress of being at a meet or whatever that looks like, you don't want to train till you do it right. You want to train till you can't get it wrong. So that consistency is more than optimal.
Yes.
You don't even have to think about it. It just comes naturally. And it's not going to be perfect in a meet, but all it takes is one throw.
Yeah.
If you average, 74, but your best throw of the day was at 81, all it takes is one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's getting to that optimal point. But yeah, I mean, it looked good. This was a while ago, so I know he's come a long way.
All right. So what you're saying is I should get out there and take another video and see.
I think that's what we're down to. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That would be great.
All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate your time. And
as always,
this was fun. We should definitely do another one. I think we will do another one. We will do another one. I'm just saying that for the video. We'll do another one.
Oh, of course.